And I'm working on this at a county level as well, because it's more of a county problem. In fact, it's bigger than even the county, but is homelessness. And
Oh,
this is something that's big. And I had somebody this morning at my coffee chat that I have once a month, and somebody showed up and said, we have so much money. What are you doing for the homeless? And obviously somebody was homeless, and he was there with somebody else who was speaking up for him as well. And I looked at it, I said, first of all, as I tell people, we just got going here. We've only been on board for a little over 3 months. So we can't solve all the problems in the world. And I've been working on the homeless issue for 5-6 years now with people countywide.
yeah.
And I realize that countywide, homelessness is not a Rochester problem. It's not a Barrington problem. It's not a Stratford County problem. It's not just a state problem. It's a national. It's an international problem.
Yeah, we read headlines all the time about
all
it.
the time. And the thing is that if we're going to deal with it nationally, I mean, people migrate back and forth between states, and you've got this traveling. They're going wherever they can find. People live up here in the summertime. They move down Florida, and they're homeless. They do that because they go wherever the warm weather is, or they're here in the towns, and when they need services, they move to the cities. So we've got to deal with it that way. I know some of the towns don't want to deal with the homeless issue. They say, we don't have homeless. Well, of course you have homeless. You just don't see them because they don't stay where you are. They come because we have the soup kitchens in Rochester,
Right.
and in Dover and in Somersworth. We have the medical services in those communities, in our communities. You don't have anything up here for them. So, of course, they aren't going to stay in the woods in Barrington. They're going to move to the woods in Rochester, because then they're only a quarter of a mile from the soup kitchen instead of 5 miles from the soup kitchen. And so, it's something we need to deal with on a regional basis, and maybe Stratford County is the way to do it. And this is something we've been working on for a number of years now. I've been working with the commissioners when I was a state representative. We've got the warming shelter at the county. We want to build a new nursing home and turn the current nursing home into housing for the homeless. And it would, basically we can put 80 families in the building. And, we're looking at putting 100 people in a warming shelter. Over 100 people in warming shelter. And if it's done right, we can have, and now they're talking about the warming shelter just for winter. I've said this publicly, that I want to see this as a 24/7, 365, not just a winter warming shelter. Have space for emergency winter warming, but then open up the rest of the building for 24/7, 365, so people have a place to live.
Yeah.
And, busing services into the communities for jobs, so that people who need jobs, they can come in and there'll be a shelter. There'll be either a room or a cot for them in this facility, where we'll be able to have single men, single women, families, whatever. It's large enough to do that. And then have the place for the people who are in the woods that need to come in for emergency winter services as well. And that way, the whole county participates. Even though the 3 cities are the ones paying for the building, the whole county will participate in maintaining the structure and providing services. So we're working on those things. But when you take a look at that, low barrier housing, the federal government has cut off all funding for low barrier housing. The state has basically cut out funding for new housing so that we can help build up our housing stock, which is 80,000 units that we need in New Hampshire alone.
We need so many.
And I'm working with private sector folks as well. I've got this one company in Rochester that 3D prints homes. I'm saying, can we do a home on a 6,000 square foot lot, 900 square feet for less than $200,000? And they're saying, yes, you can. We can.
Do you think that's a real possibility? 3D printing houses here in Rochester?
They already printed one in Dover. I mean, not in Dover, in Manchester. They got a 3D home that's been printed in Manchester. I'm looking at some innovative design. And actually sitting down with one of the owners, we were happened to be at a brew pub in Gonick, and we were there because his office is right there. And I were at the pub, and I noticed it's filling up with these younger people in their 20s and 30s. I was saying, how about if we took here on a Thursday night or whatever, and we put up 6 pictures of traditional housing and 6 pictures of innovative 3D printed homes, and let them vote, maybe not 6, maybe 4 of each. Let them vote on which one they would consider buying, and see what they say. Get their opinion on, do they want 3D, would they even consider a 3D printed home over a traditional stick-built home? Considering that we can do the 3D printed home at probably a third of the cost of what they can do a stick-built home for.
I would live in a concrete home all day long, because at least it doesn't burn like a stick house does.
You're right. And the thing is on top of that, it's not only is it, it doesn't burn, but it can be more efficient.
True.
But it's also smaller.
Right.
It's a 900 square foot home, or less. And they can do these 900, they're set up to be able to punch these 900 square foot homes out in their sleep. And they can do them in a week's time. That's the other thing.
Wow.
So they can build a home in a week.
And it's probably pretty autonomous. So you just set it up and then you
just
probably
let it
need
go.
like a couple people to just man it.
And there's actually state law that you can adopt in your local community, which is called patent zoning, which what you do is you go to the building inspector with a plan for a design for a house. And once it's in the computer, the building inspector doesn't have to come out and inspect you every day or two.
Because you can just see it all.
Because you can see it all on the plans, and then they build it. And then once that's done, you want to build another one right next door. You don't have to get the building inspector to come out at all. You just keep building.
Because of oh, wow. Wow. I didn't even think about that. That's huge.
Reduces the cost like that.
Because it's reproducible each time. Like, oh, wow.
So what I talked to him about, I said, can you come up with 4 different designs that we can get these designs approved and into the computer so that you can say, which one of the 4 or 6 or 8 or 10, which design do you like? They're all pre-approved. So we'll save the time of having the building inspector come out here. So all that funding, that permit stuff and all that stuff is going to be cut completely. You want design number 7? Design number 7, sit back and watch it being built.
Wow.
And in 4 days, in a week's time, we'll have your house. Well, 4 days, everything will be up on the outside. We'll do the inside fitting, and here's the key to the door.
And we can do that today.
We can do that today.
That's incredible.
And the thing is, individual communities have to adopt this zoning, but it's a permissible law at the state level that they have, which they will allow to be done. I went to a housing conference, and they were talking about this. I said, why isn't everybody doing this? It's relatively new. And communities got to get together and figure out how they're going to do this.
Right.
But the thing is that we can do this today. We can build houses for under $200,000. We can offer a house on the market for under $200,000. And then one of the other things I looked at is, can we put deed restrictions on these properties, which would limit the increased assessment of that house, which would help them predict their taxes going up, either the rate of inflation or 5%, whichever is more. Now, you're not going to build a lot of equity when you're looking at the rate of inflation or 5%, whichever is more. But the thing is, it's going to control the price, the value of that house. Your taxes won't be able to go through the sky because you're going to limit your assessment. Somebody 5 years from now isn't going to come out and say, your house just doubled in price.
Right.
Because we've locked in the value of that home. But if you need a place to live and, you've got a place to live and it's affordable and it's yours.
I think that's most important, right? I mean, especially if somebody's on the verge or is homeless. I, for one, couldn't imagine if I had to be homeless tomorrow. I couldn't imagine how, I'd figure it out, obviously, but that would be so life-changing to me. So to have technology like this, I know that you can't necessarily just throw people in there, but it's a path.
It's a path.
Right? It's a start of that's huge.
Yeah.
Are any other communities in New Hampshire doing this?
No.
Just Rochester.
Just Rochester. They're here in Rochester. They have their original office was here in Rochester, and they have a facility, and they have some design stuff that you can go there and take a look at the stuff. They're also at the University of New Hampshire in the creator space that they have there at the University of New Hampshire for high tech. They lease space in that building as well, and they've got all their equipment there, and they're building this stuff. And they're basically they can modularize the house by building components there and shipping them out to the site and put them, or they can take their equipment right out to the site, set it up, and build your house right there.
Wow. I want to see more of that, so I'll have to follow.
Get together with me sometime, and we'll go for a beer with the owner of the company. And it's right there. There's a brewery right there at the mill in Gonick, and it's great.
Deal.
Great little place. He's always willing to talk about this stuff. We talk about stuff all the time, and he has his own podcast, by the way, too. But he's
really
out of Maine, more is what he is, out of the Portland side. So
all right, I want to follow up on that because I think that this technology is so important, especially here in New England.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are not like the rest of the country in so many ways.
Yeah.
So, we're going to have unique solutions.
These homes have been built in Canada, and a lot of the technology comes from the West Coast and the Northwest and Canada.
Yeah.
So we know they can build them here, and they can be efficient here. And, whether you want to put it on a foundation or you want to put it on a slab, obviously a slab is the way you get your most efficiency with an outbuilding. They've actually got designs which they can pop out AUDs. That's the big thing right now.
Yep.
Accessory dwelling units. They've got a design where they can pop out AUDs right or left. And they're all ready to go on it. They've got financing lined up that if you want to put an AUD in your backyard, they've got the bank that will finance it for you and everything. So
my goodness, we're in the middle of looking up all this stuff as a family. So this is fascinating.
What color would you like the building? Because there's 2 ways to do it. They can either put it into the concrete that they start with, or they can actually color it at the nozzle. So you can actually have multiple colors.
You don't even need siding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Doesn't need siding at all. Oh,
Wow.
yeah, no siding.
No siding. Just that's incredible. I'm definitely gonna follow up
Yeah,
on that.
I actually got pictures of the house in Manchester that they built.
Really?
And I can, I don't know how this is going to be for your viewers, but I can show you
Yeah.
the
I'll
house
pop
in
them up on the
Manchester.
screen or something, or I'll put a link in the bottoms for anybody that wants to see these houses.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do that.
I don't.
But,
Yeah, no, don't worry. I'm sure I can find some kind of examples. I'd like to dial that in, but that's all crazy good.
Well, as I said, right now we're dealing with the mental health care, and I want to get that off the ground. So it's probably going to take about 6 months, and then I'm going to get into housing. And I've got people that I've been working with for years on the housing issue as well. And people have said, when are you going to do housing? And I'm saying, housing is a much more difficult issue than, because everybody's tried things and there are very little solutions for housing. And anything that we look at is also tremendously expensive.
Yeah.
As far as doing things, I'm looking at Burlington, Vermont. People want to go to Burlington, Vermont, and there's the house that's in Manchester right there.
Oh, that's actually a decent house.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're not getting trash houses. They're not just getting a pile of concrete and saying, good luck moving.
Oh, no.
They're getting like a legit experience.
But the outside, there's, very little you have to do to the outside of the building. And they also did some, there's some innovative designs that they've put out there as well that they look like something very futuristic. And I'm saying, these are the type of things that I think our youth would be taking a look at and saying, this is really interesting.
Well, I think our culture is changing so much right now. The younger generations are open to smaller houses, tiny houses, 3D printing houses.
Single family home and an apartment complex up on the hill behind them.
Yeah, those are, so what we're looking at is basically like concrete tubes, like boxes.
They sort of look like container homes.
Right? And I'm looking at the balcony. So it looks like if you had a concrete cube and you cut one end off, it would be the balcony. Actually, those are cool. I would actually go to one of those.
Yeah. Some Gen Z who's, maybe doesn't have children yet, but you get a 2-bedroom home.
Yeah.
And you can add on to the home as well. So because it's easy, if you want to do an add-on, they just bring their equipment out and they just, cut a hole and put a new room on for you.
Thinking about having a kid? Don't worry about it. Call Sal. He'll come over and throw a room on for you.